Let's get into AEW Dynamite. It wasn't a good show, by the way, for the record. It wasn't good, and I was very disappointed and upset with it. But we're going to talk about the show because we gotta. First, the date, April the 2nd, 2024, 2 days until my glorious birthday. So, we're going to talk about news and notes. The internet has been ablaze with BJ Bethel of SES Scoops popping out of the woodwork, claiming he knows how many people are watching AEW on Max. He dropped a random number of about 500,000, I think. That would take the overall viewership to 1.1 or 1.2 million. But he did not provide a source of this information. No source, no F's given. As soon as I saw his source was people familiar with the matter, I closed the thing and just was done with it. Everybody wants to argue about it. There's no point in arguing. This is one of those things where either you believe it or you don't. And to me, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Ultimately, we don't know where these figures came from, nor do we know what they mean. But we could say safely that if 500,000 people were watching AEW Dynamite every week on Max, even if they were watching 1 minute on Max, they still would have counted it as 500,000 people watched at least 60 seconds of the show. You would have heard about it via either a commercial or a tweet or something. I don't think it's that high. It's certainly a number of people watching the show on Max. And a lot of other people are trying to estimate. They say, well, the NBA gets about 434,000 or something. So it's probably a fraction of that. And I'm like, it don't matter, man. It really don't matter. The people are obsessed with how many people are watching these shows. I get it. I understand it. But I don't give a shit. I really don't care. They keep these numbers under wraps for a reason. They don't want us to know how many people watching the product. So, guess what? They can keep their secrets. We can look at the attendance. All right? We can look at the TV ratings, and we can assume that a certain number of people are not watching it on TV, but watching it through either streaming or they're bootlegging it or something. There's always going to be a certain number of those people. It's okay. But I'm not jumping on a grenade for AEW, nor am I going to cape for this shit. No. Give me some information I can use, a citation that I can believe, and that's it. I'm not even going to say this guy was bought and paid for. I'm not even going to say that. I'm just going to say there is no source. So what is the argument? There is no argument to be made. All right, so Jay White is legitimately injured, so he was written out of the storyline as having been attacked by the Death Riders. So he is out. He's been replaced with Kevin Knight. We'll talk about Kevin Knight in a minute because there's some stuff that's going on there that I want to talk about. All right. Match the first. Moxley and Marina Shafir lose to Willow Nightingale and Swerve Strickland in a mixed tornado tag match that was actually very, very bad. Of course, we got the humorous spot where Marina is about to get big pressure while Willow is being teased to get the Death Rider. And Marina is screaming, "Do it! Just do it!" Like she's gonna... She's got a death wish. That's hilarious. But remember when Bret Hart said that these guys need to stop acting so much and they need to just get to being wrestlers? Part of this, what he was talking about, was not the actual act of wrestling, but these people pretending to be wrestlers instead of just being wrestlers. There's an entire generation of people for whom that is a problem. And I think we're looking right at it. In this match, you're looking right at the damn thing. If you can't see it, I can't show you any other way. You just have to, and you can see it in NXT a little bit, but you can see it here. Obviously. Okay, it's clear as goddamn crystal what Bret Hart was talking about. Alright, so at one point, Marina Shafir is trying to powerbomb Willow, who is a whole lot of girl, through a table from the ring apron. And Willow got that leg up. But Marina couldn't do anything else. She could not lift Willow. She could not. It wasn't going to work. So Willow had to, jump a little bit. And all Marina Shafir had to do was make sure she hit the table. And she barely hit the table. This, of course, was clipped. And everybody's been making fun of Willow. Look, I love me some big fluffy Willow, man. But she's a big girl. And she ain't no small fry. Asking for Marina Shafir to do that spot goes to show two things. One, everything ain't for everybody. And two, you clearly don't know your opponent. If they knew each other well, and they work together for years now, she should know Marina Shafir don't have the upper body strength to pick her up in a powerbomb situation. She should know that. I mean, come on. That was dangerous. It was very dangerous. Willow can't do too much, but she cannot die. Anyway, Marina Shafir ended up shoving Moxley out of the way and took the drive-by kick to the head on his behalf. This led to Willow powerbombing her and winning the match. Willow and Swerve were excited about their victory, and Moxley snatched Willow and DDT'd her onto the ring. Then he just fled, which was actually a good heat spot, because they had teased it earlier, but they didn't do it. But this time they did. Swerve swore vengeance that he was going to get his hands on Jon Moxley for what happened here with Willow. And then we didn't see Swerve for 40 minutes maybe. At the end of the show, Swerve is, again, doing what Bret Hart said, which is acting like he's angry, and he's searching for Jon Moxley instead of just searching for Jon Moxley. Instead, Hangman Page runs up on him, yelling at him about how he's going to make sure Swerve is never going to be world champion. It's never going to happen on his watch. You burned down my house, and is what Swerve is yelling at Hangman. He said, "You broke into my house. You deserved it." And Swerve said, "I know." And then the world stopped. Even I was like, He said, what? All these security guards who magically popped up like Final Fantasy, villains just, they just popped up out of nowhere. And separating them, they let them go. And then Swerve said, "I know. I deserved it." And Hangman was so impotent, so frustrated. He stormed off like, huh. And everybody's little bitty baby heart started pitter-patting because Swerve he's softening up. He's admitting fault. He's admitting that Hangman Page's rage is his own fault. That he is the one who started all of this. The one who went too far. It gives Hangman Page a chance to heal. Oh my God. Look, yes, I like this in terms of a character moment for Swerve. I do like this. It shows growth, that this whole situation with him and Hangman has been going on for too long. But you could also play it off later on that he just needs Hangman to leave him alone. You could always play it off later that he just said that so that Hangman wouldn't interfere in the championship match. But in reality, he didn't mean it. You could always play that card later. But for right now, it shows a lot of character growth. That Swerve is admitting fault. That he was a terrible person. And that Hangman Page's rage was justified. It's not an apology, but it's a step forward. And you know what? Again, I have to give AEW credit. I said months ago that one of the problems with Roman Reigns being in the position that he's in right now is that he refused to apologize to the Usos. He just kind of went with, maybe if I yeet along with them, everything will be great. Everything's going to be hunky-dory. It's like, no, to do a full character change, there needs to be an admission that you did something wrong. Okay? And you need to actively try to right that wrong. This is where you could have done some really cool things, but that's WWE. We're talking about AEW right here. Swerve admitting that he was wrong is step one. Apologizing will be step two. And then leaving the ball in Hangman's court about what he's going to do next. Is he going to still be on a rampage? Or is he going to get over it? That's going to be a really good decision for the character of Hangman Page. Is he completely lost to his rage and vengeance that he can't even look at a genuine admission of guilt and say, you know what? It's been 2 years. You admitted it. We fought it out. We've bled and done all of that. Or is Hangman going to say, I said what I said. I already gave my word that you will never be world champion. Doesn't matter if you apologize. Doesn't matter if you admit guilt. You're not going to be world champion on my watch. At that point, he's going to be a full-fledged heel. Okay, but it's a good character dynamic. It was a good moment. Maybe you could have found a better way to come up with it. But I'm going to give them credit for doing it. Immediately after this, however, Swerve is beat up and thrown through a glass window by the Death Riders. They then continue to beat him up, pour glass in the ring, and then powerbomb him onto this glass. I got the hiccups, I'm sorry. Powerbombed him onto this glass. This obviously fake glass, because there's not even a single scratch on this man as he sits up like the Undertaker and snarls at the Death Riders as they walk away like confused rats. They're not selling it. Moxley just turned around, mouth breathing. And Claudio's like, no. Why they don't sell anything? Why don't they sell things? I don't know, man. But Swerve being superhuman, it's actually looking like Swerve might win the championship. Speaking of which, goddamn, I got to do a preview show for Dynasty. It's this Sunday. This didn't feel like a go-home show. So I'm going to do the Dynasty go-home show in a second, okay? After I do the review of the show. Okie dokie. I didn't like this closing angle. It felt lame. AEW has already done the glass, the thumbtacks. So why half-ass it and do fake glass this time? I don't get it. Is Swerve not man enough to do real glass? Cry me a river. Real glass. Cry me a river. He's not man enough to do it? Everybody else would do it. Why wouldn't he do it? That's the problem when you do hardcore shit. Because then people are going to be like, hey, why didn't you do the hardcore shit? But whatever. Moxley, Swerve this Sunday. We'll deal with it when we get there. FTR is still beefing. Dax pushed the referee. Got fined $10,000. Dax then gives the $10,000 to the referee. And then told the referee not to cash it until Friday. Sir, you don't have $10,000 right now? Is that what you're saying? Because I know what you're trying to say. Wait until payday. I get that. But you should have $10,000 right now. If you got a check for $10,000 right now, You probably should have it. I know you're not living paycheck to paycheck. Stop it. Don't play with me, Dax. Cash is over there pouting. I don't get it. Why is a grown man pouting? Why are you pouting, Cash? Did he take your gun from you? I don't know. Anyway, they're talking about being best of friends, brothers. They're gonna win the trios titles. And then Cash says he gave him the stop, no. And he wants to hug. He's like, no. Afterwards, we need to talk. I'm like, ugh. They don't need to talk ever. Don't need to talk ever. Timeless Toni Storm defeated Penelope Ford in the next match. Toni Storm still doing her vaguely hot lesbian action gimmick as she bit the lip and or tongue of Penelope Ford during this match. Megan Bayne was watching. Of course, Timeless Toni Storm won. They didn't do an angle or anything between Megan Bayne and Toni. They just did a stare down where Megan Bayne looked magnificent and Toni looked good. Timeless Toni Storm, big fan, obviously. I don't know why they was wasting her time with Penelope Ford, but it is what it is. So the Hurt Business is in the ring with MJF. Lashley had disrespected MJF, but MJF said he's going to let it slide because Lashley doesn't know who he is. But Lashley's in AEW now, and MJF claims that he built this place. He says he wants to help the Hurt Business keep the tag team titles. In exchange, they help him get back his world title. It's good for business, him being in the Hurt Business. And that Lashley needs MJF. Well, that shocked big old Bob to his core, and Bob flubbed the promo like he always does. Bob, god damn it, he flubs these promos so goddamn often. Even when he looks cool and he's got cool shit to say, it's almost guaranteed that Bob's going to have a brain fart and screw it up. So he, Jesus! He almost called MJF MVP. And then he says, out of respect, he's not going to leave MJF laying right there. And he says he don't like MJF, don't trust him, and certainly don't need him. And unless he can prove himself, he can get lost. So MJF says, yo, you want to prove myself? You want to prove myself? Okay, I'll go prove myself. I'll go do that right now. So as he's leaving, and the Hurts are leaving, Big Bill and Brian Keith show up, and they're going to fight some jabronis. Big Bill wants Lashley to sit in a chair and watch them. Lashley looks at the chair like it was covered in mold and moss. And Big Bill is still pointing at the chair. Sit in the chair. I want you to watch this. And it's almost like these guys are shooting an angle by themselves, and Lashley just happened to be standing there. He did not feel like he was in on whatever they were doing. This is the second week in a row where it seemed like MVP and Lashley are doing their own thing, and then here comes Big Bill. He's trying to integrate himself into what they're doing, and they're like, no, we don't know. We don't want anything to do with this. Stop talking to us. Leave us alone. In this situation, Lashley was so disrespectful. He wasn't working with this guy. He was completely uncooperative. He kicked the chair over. At least he stood there. At least he stood and watched. I mean, it was a jabroni match. It didn't take that long. And then he clapped mockingly after they won, because obviously they were going to win. And then Big Bill said that they were going to beat them for the tag team titles, and Lashley gave them a thumbs up and left. And that was it. That was it. I was like, God damn, they're burying these guys without even pinning them. They just have no respect for them. Just none. Wow. Jeez. And they had the stare down between Big Bill and Lashley, and Bill's much bigger than Lashley. Jesus. I know he got a little bit of an incline because he was on that ramp. I know that he was, had a little bit of a height advantage because of that incline, but damn, when you look at Aura, Lashley just looks massive compared to Big Bill. Bill, he was trying his best to make this thing work, and MVP and Lashley just put their boot on his neck, like, we're not interested in this. We're doing this for the payday only. We don't care about this feud at all. We don't care about this shit at all. But the MJF angle is okay. We all got to sit back and figure out how MJF is going to prove himself to the Hurt Business. Of course, there's going to be a question of MJF been in the business 5 years. Why do he got to prove himself to anybody? But you got to understand, Lashley is almost 50. MVP is over 50, I think. These guys don't have to take anything MJF says seriously. They're old veterans. They're like, yeah, right. It would be nice if, Lashley would have mentioned, I don't know if he could have gotten this out because, he flubs everything. But that MVP, yeah, even I'm fucking it up now. MJF has screwed over every single faction he has been a part of. And because of that, he can't be trusted. And that should be a part of his character. It should be, the Pinnacle trusted you. Chris Jericho trusted you. Adam Cole trusted you. And you tried to scheme against all of them. Wardlow trusted you. No. We're not dumbasses. We followed the product. We do our research. Even if you say, look, we watched the show, just say, look, we did some research on you and we asked around, asked about your reputation. Reputation means a lot. We don't fuck with you for this obvious reason. And it's the reason that all the fans know MJF can't be trusted. So, fair. Bob saying MJF got to kick rocks is absolutely fair. Mercedes Moné is going to be doing this thing with Harley Cameron, and there's a puppet. The puppet is back. She came out, Harley Cameron did, and she's still being silly. She's making weird noises. I'm like, Lord have mercy. Enough. Okay, look. She wants to play, Mr. Dress Up over here, and with the polka dot door and all that bullshit. She can go somewhere else with that, okay? I like Harley Cameron. She's funny, but she's too cartoonish. She's too over the top. Tone it down some, and then maybe you'll get right in that sweet spot of, how some foods are just too sweet. You get that Kool-Aid is entirely too sweet. It's like 99% sugar. That's how Harley Cameron is, I like funny. I like silly. Especially in wrestling. I don't mind it at all. I'm not one of these people who are disappointed when people do comedy skits. But you can go overboard. And I think Harley Cameron goes way over. Like the puppet, the voices, the mannerisms, the whole nine, it's too much. It's too much. Tone it down, please. But both her and Mercedes are going to be in the female Owen. Well, not that I care, but I did see that they put Athena and Mercedes on the same side of the bracket. So what they're telling me, MongoSlade, what they're telling me is likely they're going to have Athena beat Mercedes in the tournament. Athena will then probably lose in the finals because of Mercedes. And then their match will happen at a pay-per-view. And somebody from the other side of the bracket is likely going to be going to win the Owen Cup. It doesn't make sense to have Mercedes win the Owen Cup, beating Athena along the way, and then she's still going to be feuding with Athena later on. It makes perfect sense if Athena breaks Mercedes' undefeated streak, and this is going to be the impetus for her to challenge for the TBS title later, because she's already beaten her. And it could be a cheap roll-up win. It doesn't have to be she beat her with her big finisher and all that stuff. It could be a cheap, schoolgirl roll-up, victory roll or whatever. It could even be a disqualification or a count-out or something like that, but I would prefer a pinfall. And just to get Mercedes out of the tournament and get some heat on this thing. A lot of people are extremely excited about Athena being in AEW television, but she still has not made Dynamite. She's on Collision. I don't know why, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. I haven't even looked at the men's side of the Owen, and I don't care. To be fair, I don't really give a shit about these tournaments. Just being fair, I don't care. But I'm just looking at it from the perspective of Mercedes Moné because she's the topic of conversation right now. And it would not be fair if she won the Owen Cup and she got all these belts and she beat Athena on the way to get to the Owen Cup. That would just be overkill in terms of push. But if you can beat her in the tournament, you can get somebody over. Unfortunately, unless Athena wins the tournament, you're going to have to beat her to get her out of the tournament too. So something tells me that they should have waited and made this the final, or they should not have put one or the other in the tournament. That's just kind of how I feel. I don't think the tournament is served to have both of them in it. Somebody needs to be taken out, especially since the winner of the tournament gets a world championship match. Why does Mercedes need to win the Owen Cup to get a world title match? She's undefeated, right? Athena is undefeated in 2 years. Why does she need to? Well, that's Ring of Honor, I guess. So I guess it's different. But there's a completely fresh situation here. But I am sort of interested in seeing how it shakes out. But at the same time, I really don't care. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Speaking of not gonna lie to you, I saw Will Ospreay. I went to the bathroom, and I was gone the entire match. Will Ospreay and Kevin Knight defeated Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. Did you think it was going to go any other way? I didn't. So Kevin Knight, I'm very familiar with Kevin Knight. I watched him in MLW. I saw him in TNA. Saw him in New Japan. The AEW fan base have been really, really, really geeked that he's all elite now. They spent almost all day Saturday and Sunday talking about how amazing he is, how great he is. He's a young star. You know, they stole him from WWE where he had a contract. I mean, they do this all the time. There was a bidding war, and then AEW won the bidding war for Kevin Knight. It turns out WWE asked him to do a tryout. It wasn't that they offered him a contract. They did offer him a tryout. I think a match, or maybe to come to the tryouts at one of the big events. This was months ago, actually. I think it might have been around the time for Royal Rumble. But I don't know if they actually offered him a contract. But, you know, AEW does this every time they sign a new quote-unquote game changer. They claim that there was some kind of bidding war that AEW won. And I just shrug because it doesn't matter anyway. Kevin Knight, is he good? Well, the problem with Kevin Knight is the problem with a lot of AEW talent. Very, very, very athletic. Young guy. No discernible personality. No discernible gimmick. And not much on the microphone either. You know? So, you end up in this situation, and he lost his first match right out of the gate, because that's what they do to everybody in AEW. They beat him the first night they get there. So, you're in an interesting situation where everybody was super jazzed about this guy, and he lost his first match, and then his second singles match, is going to be a singles match against Will Ospreay at the pay-per-view that you know he's going to lose. It's a showcase match. And what happens once we see everything he can do? Then what? This has been the problem with AEW over and over again. You sign this guy, he's got all the physical tools in the world. He's a young guy, you got him, you can develop him, do something different. His entire gimmick is based off of being tag team partners with Kushida. That's why he wears the funny shades, because he's in a tag team with Kushida. Kushida's a 50-year-old Japanese midget. No disrespect to him, but Kushida's best time was 15 years ago, maybe even 20. Kevin Knight is a young black guy. He's under the age of 30, for God's sake. He should be doing something different. The problem I had with this is, and I was, had this rummaging through my head as I was thinking about Kevin Knight in NXT, is I was saying, look, what Kevin Knight can do physically, how many people on the roster can do the same thing he can do? Well, AEW's got Top Flight, that's 2. Leo Rush, that's 3. Right? And I'm just talking about black guys who are athletic and can do all the flips and everything. That's 3. NXT has got at least 2. Wesley and Javon Evans, and maybe some other ones that I'm not thinking off the top of my head. That's why gimmicks matter. Because if it's just athleticism, then we already got that. We got that in spades. There's already 1,000 guys who are extremely athletic. So it's not a necessity. So hopefully AEW does something to add value to Kevin Knight, because he can be an asset. I'm not going to sit here and shit on the guy. Hell no, I'm not about to do that. He's a talented dude and I like him. But the problem is AEW fans are acting like he's, revolutionary and he's going to change the game. No, he's just another young athletic guy on a show with a bunch of young athletic guys. It's not going to do you any good in the long run, especially if you keep fucking beating him. But I'm not going to pretend I watched this match because Blake Christian sucks and Lee Johnson is a joke. Next, Brody King defeated Lance Archer, who gives a fuck, and Edge beat Claudio Castagnoli. He did a top rope DDT like he's going to break his leg again. Man, Edge is taking a whole lot of crazy bumps. My goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Anyway, that's the show. Not a very good show, especially that last hour. I was not interested. None of those matches tickled me at all. Usually I would have thought Edge versus Claudio would have been good, and it was a solid match. It wasn't the worst match in the world, but it was a match to which nothing was gained or lost. So I had a tough time getting into it. I had a tough time really caring about the outcome, and I knew Edge was going to win. And they didn't do anything in the match to lead me to believe that Claudio could win. So there's that. All right, now let's get into AEW Dynasty. All right, AEW Dynasty from, what is this? Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They have distributed thus far 6,000 tickets, and we are a couple of days away from the show, about 4 to 5 days away from the show. The current setup is for 7,000. I expect that to sell out. I expect them to get 7,000 at the very least. In Philadelphia, that's a hardcore audience, and they typically come out for the AEW product. There is, as of right now, 8 matches set for this show. 8. Good Lord. Triple H is about to have a conniption. He's about to flip out. Oh, yeah. Before we get into this show, sorry for a little detour here. I see that AEW is turning All Out Weekend into their WrestleMania weekend. So they're going to have all these little events. They're going to put a Ring of Honor show that same weekend. And they're going to do StarCast and Collision. Basically, they're going to take the WWE model and port it over to what they do. So since All In is their biggest event, they're going to put all these little ancillary events around it. And you know what? That's smart. What WWE several years ago, they actually tried to file a lawsuit. This is the dumbest lawsuit in the world. Trying to prevent all these other indie companies from basically riding WrestleMania weekend. They didn't like the idea that indie shows were challenging NXT on those weekends or taking away business from WrestleMania. And they tried to file lawsuits to prevent companies from doing that. I don't know how you sue But I guess WrestleMania almost always made money, so it's not like they hurt business. But all the parasitic organizations, they were trying to stop that. Of course, they couldn't stop it. It's ridiculous. Free trade, assholes. But now, AEW's trying to do it. They're trying to flood the weekend, and in hopes of preventing other people from running that same weekend in that same area. Even though I think WWE is running a show around that time anyway. I think, is it Saturday Night's Main Event or something? Yeah, so Saturday Night's Main Event is running at 8 p.m. So All In Texas will be running at 3 p.m. earlier in the day, which is crazy that, WWE got them to turn their version of WrestleMania into a matinee show. But hey, AEW still not going to end till midnight. They're probably going to stack that bitch with 10 matches. And every match is going to go 30 minutes. But they don't want the surrounding area to be filled with competition shows. They want them to have ancillary product. WWE did this with the Roast of WrestleMania and the Hall of Fame and NXT. And they're just loading up as much content as they can where the money goes into their pocket and then jacking up the price on everything. The Undertaker Dead Man Show, all that stuff. So now AEW is doing the same damn thing, which is, tit for tat. But the people who complained when WWE was doing it, are they going to complain that AEW is doing it? Because for years and years, everybody was okay with piggybacking WrestleMania. And then guys started to piggyback AEW shows. And AEW didn't complain, to their credit. But now they're just going to say, we're going to turn the spigot off by loading up our weekend with content that you have to pay to get to. And a con and all that stuff. And I wonder if the same people are going to complain. I'm willing to bet money that the answer is no. But changing the time of your version of WrestleMania to 5 hours before to avoid a Saturday Night's Main Event that's crazy. And we know that show about to be mid. So why the hell y'all running away? That show going to be mid as hell. All right, let's get into these 8 matches here on AEW Dynasty. Let's get into it. Mercedes Moné versus Julia Hart, Women's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament quarterfinal. Why is this on this show? Why is this on pay-per-view? Julia Hart is not she's not a major opponent for Mercedes. This is just to put Mercedes on the show. Mercedes is going to win. Men's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament quarterfinal. Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight, poor fella, he gets no momentum whatsoever. He's going to get beaten in the second match too, because Will Ospreay is going to win. No issues there. So the first 2 in the bucket, no problem. The third match, Daniel Garcia defends the TNT Championship against Adam Cole. This match has no time limit and no outside interference is permitted. So apparently these 2 guys have been cooking on Collision. I have not watched any of the stuff that they've done. I've heard that Adam Cole got his body together and that he's actually in shape now. If that's the case, I am very impressed and I will applaud him. I don't care about Daniel Garcia, generally speaking, because AEW doesn't really care about him. They keep him hidden on Collision. But I guess Collision is a show that AEW fans actually watch now. Okay, but I'm not watching it. It's going to take a lot more than a good wrestling match in order to get me to watch this show. Now, my money, I'm just going to make a guess, is that they've been doing these little things to keep the belt on Daniel Garcia. So he probably did a time limit draw. I think that was one of the matches they had a time limit draw. And I think another one of the matches was a disqualification or an outside interference or something like that. I would imagine that Adam Cole is going to win the title now. And that would probably be the best option for AEW. I think the Daniel Garcia experiment is a worthwhile one. I don't hate Daniel Garcia as much as everybody else does. I know there's a lot of people who think he's boring, they think he sucks. And you know what? That might be the case. But he's a young guy. He's still learning, and he needs to be put in a position where he gets pushed to the edge. I'm not sure if Adam Cole is a babyface or a heel at this point, because again, I don't watch Collision. But if Adam Cole is not a heel, he should turn heel and win the title. And then Daniel Garcia should chase him for the belt. That might actually be interesting. If Adam Cole is a babyface and you want to keep the belt on Daniel Garcia, maybe you want to turn Daniel Garcia heel so that he can keep the belt, and then you have another babyface defeat him for it. But it might be time to change up this TNT title, because I don't see an end point, a natural end point that's better for Daniel Garcia than to lose to a guy like Adam Cole, who has a lot of, despite the fact that, people make fun of him a lot, and I'm one of those people, he has a lot of cachet in the wrestling space. His name still means a little something. Those 2 or 3 years of injury and looking sick really dropped his stock. So you really do need to pick me up on Adam Cole too. So I would say put the belt on Adam Cole, but put the belt on him hot. He should not just flat out beat Daniel Garcia. He should either cheat, steal the belt, and be a hot heel champion, or Daniel Garcia should turn and he should be a hot babyface champion. One or the other. But make it hot. Hot. Heat. That's important. Chris Jericho versus Bandito. Title versus mask for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Well, I know that they're not going to unmask Bandito. And I don't think Bandito was dumb enough to let them unmask him. So this one is as obvious as the Owen Hart Foundational tournament matches. Bandito is going to win the title here. Problem with that is nothing, because Jericho doesn't need it and nobody really cares about it. Bandito is going to win the belt. I like Bandito. Unfortunately, they got him stuffed over in Ring of Honor. Man, I don't watch Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is even, god damn, that's even more the gutter than Collision is, for Christ's sake. At least there's some things happening on Collision. There's almost nothing happening in Ring of Honor. Jesus Christ. Match, what is this, 5? I don't know. I lost count. The Death Riders, which would be Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Vila Utah, will defend the AEW Trios Championships versus Rated FTR, Edge, and FTR. Okay. The Death Riders have been the Trios champions for a long time. So long that I forgot that they were the Trios champions. They've done nothing with the belts. And that whole division became constipated pretty much the moment the Elite dropped those titles. I don't know how many years ago that was. I can't tell you when the last time anybody cared about those Trios belts. So if you want people to care about them, you probably would put them on Edge and FTR. But they're doing a schism angle between Edge and FTR, where there's Dax and Cash are having problems, and Dax and Edge are having problems. So it seems like a loss actually furthers their story. That them losing to the Death Riders actually furthers their story. So that's probably going to be the best option. The Death Riders, Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta are going to defeat Rated FTR. And I don't think they'll break up there, but they may tease a breakup. You may even have Dax attack Edge or something like that. Well, that's a breakup, but maybe verbally attack Edge, yell at him, scream at him, and stuff like that. And I don't care about this belt, by the way. So it's like, if the Death Riders were to lose the titles, So what? If they win, so what? Because I don't care about these belts at all. Next, Kenny by God Omega defends the International Championship versus Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. I'm sorry, a triple threat match. Kenny Omega versus Ricochet versus Speedball Mike Bailey. This match should be a singles match, either or versus Kenny Omega, but we're trapped in triple threat hell at this point in pro wrestling. Every single company is just drowning us, waterboarding us with triple threat matches. So they figured it out. This is the right thing to do. Dumb. Absolutely dumb. Kenny Omega is going to win because he just won this belt. And no doubt they want to build up this run. I've heard tell that Kenny Omega versus Okada will be the match at All In, and they're going to unify the international and continental titles. And since that has been on the internet for a while, has been floating around, I don't see why they wouldn't do that. So there's no way Omega is losing. So that means that probably Speedball is going to end up taking a pin. Why it couldn't just be a one-on-one match? I don't know. But Kenny Omega is going to win this match. And hopefully Speedball Mike Bailey won't have too many stars in his eyes as he's watching Kenny Omega work in here. God knows. The last thing we need is for him to be distracted by his fandom. He's probably going to ask for a goddamn autograph in the middle of the ring like a mark. Next, Timeless Toni Storm will defend the AEW Women's World Title versus the Megasis Megan Bayne. It is, again, I say it's too soon for Megan Bayne to either A, be the world champion, or B, be beaten by the world champion. It's too soon. This match should not be happening. Maybe Megan Bayne should have won the Owen, and then she should be challenging at All In. Now, I probably need to look at that bracket for the first time in forever. I probably need to look at that women's bracket to see who's going to be in it, because that might figure out who is going to end up winning the women's side, so I can see who is going to end up challenging for the title. Let's see, you got Jamie Hayter, nope. Billy Starks, nope. Thunder Rosa, nope. Chris Statlander, nope. Julia Hart, nope. Mercedes, Harley Cameron, hell no. And Athena, oh Lord. So somebody's got to win this damn thing. And jeez, looking at this, I don't know. There really shouldn't be any other winner except Mercedes at this point. I didn't know it was this lopsided. I just, Thunder Rosa is not special anymore. Statlander is just not going to get it ever. Jamie Hayter's not special anymore. Billy Starks is a kid. She got Kentucky genetics. It's not going to work out for her. Harley Cameron's a cartoon character. She's basically like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or some shit. I don't know what the fuck going on with her. And Julia Hart, I don't know. She's a witch. So, looking at that list, I have no idea what's going to happen because it's a mess. Look, if you want to make Megan Bayne a star, just have her beat Toni Storm here. And then maybe you put Toni Storm in the Owen somehow through a back door. And Toni Storm wins the Owen and challenges Megan Bayne at All In and wins the title back. Maybe that's something that you could do. You could entertain that idea. Again, I just don't think that this is the right option. I think Megan Bayne is a talented young lady. She could use a change of facial expression. She reminds me of one of the weeping angels from Doctor Who, for God's sake. She only changes her facial expression when you're not looking at her. And it's a weird situation for her to be in right now. I'm going to go with Toni Storm winning. Mainly because I'm thinking Toni Storm walking into All In as the champion is probably the right idea, even if they don't have a solid opponent. And the question, of course, becomes: do they want to do title for title, Mercedes versus Toni? That could be a big match, belt for belt. That could be a pretty big match. If that's the idea, then Toni's, of course, going to win this match too. But that also would explain why Megan Bayne's going to get her title shot so soon, just to get her out of the way. Is that they're going to go with Mercedes and Toni for the championship. Which would then basically say, why would Athena be there? Because I would thought that the whole idea would be Athena and Mercedes. But then maybe they're going to do Athena and Mercedes at a different show. I think there's another show, Double or Nothing, after this. So maybe they'll do it there. So I'm going to go with Toni Storm winning. But a happy surprise of Megan Bayne winning would not bother me. It depends on how they would do it. But seeing that Megan Bayne is rubbing shoulders with Penelope Ford does not instill me with any sort of positive goodwill that she's going to get pushed in this match. Okay, so the main event: Jon Moxley versus Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. Everybody wants Swerve to win, which is what exactly the feeling you're supposed to have when you got yourself a main event babyface, is you want him to win, you want him to go over. But I think mostly people want Swerve to win because they hate the Death Riders. I think that's pretty much what it boils down to. Everybody hates the Death Riders and hate that angle, and they want it to end. They want this thing to move forward finally. Of all of the people in the company, there's really two guys that engender a lot of positive feelings about AEW. One is Swerve, two is Hangman Page, and they're forever kind of locked together. The fans have not turned on these guys. If Swerve pushed an old lady down a flight of stairs, the AEW fans will say the old lady deserved it at this point in time. That's how much of in the tank they are for Swerve. And it's not just because he's a good babyface. It's because he's a great brown noser. And a lot of the interviews and things that he's done over the last couple of weeks, not just the Vlad interview, but some of the other things that he said when he goes on like the Breakfast Club and all this kind of stuff, he's brown nosing AEW literally all the time. It makes them feel good. Like he's one of us. He's in the cult too. And that's why they want him to win. And that's good enough reason. It doesn't really matter why the fans are cheering him, as long as they're cheering him. The issue here is, if you kill Moxley's angle, was this the goal all along? Because clearly the goal was to have Moxley push somebody to the breaking point, and then for somebody to break through, some young guy to step up and put him in his place. Of course, the idea was for Darby Allin to be that guy, but then Darby decided he was going to go climb a mountain and lose a foot or some shit, who knows, and he decided to go do that. Now, Swerve has enough momentum to get this to work. If you're going to do an angle with Hangman Page, let's say Hangman Page is not going to accept Swerve's apology, the inevitable apology which is going to end up coming. Hangman Page or Swerve will be enough for that audience going forward. That audience is into those two guys feuding. They like the feud. They like the storyline going forward. That will be enough. If you're going to go with sticking to the plan I don't see what second option you could have for Moxley, however. If you don't drop it to Swerve, who the fuck you going to drop it to? There literally is no one else. You know? I mean, Jay White is out. You already beaten Edge. There's nobody else. I mean, and Jay White wasn't really an option in the first place. Omega is off doing something else. Okada's off doing something else. Who else you got? Really? Will Ospreay? Maybe Will Ospreay is the choice. Maybe Will Ospreay wins the Owen Cup, and you want to go with Mox and Ospreay at All In. But that means you got to drag this angle. 3 more months. 3 more months of the Death Riders, just so Will Ospreay can beat him at All In. Or you could have Swerve beat Moxley and then do the rematch of Swerve versus Ospreay at All In. Either or is fine. Moxley, I think, needs to cough this belt up. I don't see the value of him as champion going forward. I think he's killing the show. I think that for months and months now, that he's been killing the show. I just don't see how this Death Riders thing can continue. I think Tony Khan has to put his foot down. He's got to say, this thing, we tried it your way. It's not working. The audience is disgruntled. They've seen enough. They've heard enough. That's it. We're killing this thing. It's dead. It's over. Your idea of, hey, we're going to do this big angle in order to push Darby. Darby fucked it up. Darby ruined it. So now we're going to give it to Swerve. He's literally your best option. He's one of your most over baby faces. There's more that you can do with him at the top than you can do with Moxley. The positive energy is there. That's what AEW needs. That's what they need more than anything right now, is to have positive feelings and positive momentum. The audience is starting to come back. The audience is starting to watch the shows and have fun with the shows again. They're even starting to watch Collision and push Collision onto people. The audience wants, and in some sense deserves, to have their positive momentum rewarded. Do not punish them by having Moxley beat Swerve. If Moxley beats Swerve by hook or crook, a lot of the negativity around in that angle will once again dominate AEW. The black cloud will not lift. It will continue. And there will be virtually no way of getting out of that thing at that point. Unless Hangman Page is going to be the guy you give the belt to. Now, maybe that will smarten that audience up, because that's the only other guy you can give the belt to. And that audience will not complain, you know. So, I would suggest that Swerve win the title, but money is telling me that Moxley is going to win. I'm still going to go the other way, though. I'm going to say Swerve. All right. That's it for the predictions. Thank you guys for your time. This show was very long. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.